let's do our first exercise of writing a Docker file. A simple, a welcome Docker file. So that will print a welcome message in Ubuntu server. Okay. Using Ubuntu server, we will do that. That too, we will do it in Docker server. It's this example is in for a Linux machine. Okay. So let's get into the Linux machine. Uh, Let me take a sticky note and this is example 3 is done. 4, yeah, example 4, writing Docker file. So this is very simple. We will create a Docker file and we will write some instructions to be executed. That's it, nothing much. Okay, that's what we're going to do, but first we will write it. We will first step is write the Docker file, then second build the Docker image from the Docker file, and third run or spin the container container defined by the Docker image, and we'll see. Okay, these are the steps for example 4, and this we will be doing in Linux server, or the name of our server is Docker server. So in this we are going to do that. Okay, so let's get into our exercise now. So let me get into my Linux server. Here it is, and I'll make it bigger so it's gone. Yeah, clear the screen. Sudo option I. So, okay, so now it's ready. So let me do make dir docker exercises and cd docker. That's okay. Yeah, ls nothing is there. So this is our example 4. So I'll say make dir example 4, or just in shortcut ex4, and welcome cd ex4 welcome. Now let's write our first ever Docker file. So I'll make it smaller because it's not that big. So I just want to show you, yeah, this part also, and I'll keep it aside, side by side both, so then it will be much clearer for you. Okay, so now let's write it clear and make it a little smaller. So now let's write our first Docker file. I hope you're all excited to write your first Docker file as I am. Okay, that's fine. I'd say vim, and so the file name should be capital D and Vockerfile. This should be the file name, Docker file, and click enter. Yes, and click I to write your first Docker file. So what's the first instruction? Always from. Okay, I say from, and I would use which image. I'll go to the Docker Hub, and yeah, here it is. Here is the Docker Hub, and I will click on explore, click Ubuntu, and pull this. I don't care about tags and all, or else if you're much worried about that, you can. But you just see here we are not pulling the image, we are not pulling the image, we are building our own image. For that you require a base image that we are considering Ubuntu. So we need to get the name of the image. The name of the image is Ubuntu. You see, Ubuntu here, Ubuntu is the name, and after the colon it is tag. So we want only name, so Ubuntu is the name. So I will type Ubuntu. Done. So now it's simple. So I want to set up a working directory inside the container, not here, not in our server. So what I want to put is workdir. For workdir, what you want to put? This. Okay, before we put workdir, I would say maintainer. This is okay. Then workdir, I'll put root directory of the container. Okay. Then a final one, it's most important. So till now the instructions are the commands that I have given will be executed when you build an image. Now I'm gonna give one command that will be executed if and only if you run or spin the container. That's what is that? What is that you see here? CMD. Specify which command will be run on start up of a container. I'll give it here. Okay. That is CMD and square bracket echo. What I want to print, I want to echo what? Welcome to the world of Docker from AI Charan. Done. And let me close the square bracket. Sorry. So all fine, right? No issue. So echo is the command, and after that we gave an argument. So both the, it's like Linux only. So Linux command. So this is command and this is argument. So when we spin a container, it will echoes this argument. Nothing much will happen. That's what is going to happen when you spin a container. Okay. So let me save this because it's done. So our Docker file has been created. Let me save this. W save Q quit. Done. Let me do ls and see. Here it is, your Docker file. And lsl, yeah, read, write, read, but no execution permission for anybody. But for root user, it's all okay. Docker is there. Okay. So now this activity has been done. Writing a Docker file has been done. So now let me go to the sticky note. Done. So now the second thing is to build the Docker image from the Docker file. So before we build a Docker image, let's see what does a building a Docker image mean. Okay, we will look into that first and then we'll come back. So building a Docker image, what does it mean? So to build a Docker image, which command we are going to use? So you have defined your Docker files build steps or build instructions or build commands. I'll show that if you have a doubt. So these are the, I'll put that cat Docker file. So these are the instructions or commands or steps that we have defined. Now it's time to build the Docker image from that Docker file by typing docker build and dot. That's it, nothing else. Okay, just type it, docker build dot. That's it. Okay, so in this, when you the first one is docker command and second one is the sub command and then the path to the docker file here. So you when you execute this command, you should be in the directory where the docker file has been put or has been placed or has been created. That's very, very important point. Okay, so then once you execute this code, you will see this kind of output. So in that, the initial two lines is to Docker uploads the files and directories under the path supplied to the Docker command or subcommand. Then step 0 means each instruction or each line that you have mentioned inside the Docker file is called as a single step. So first we said from Ubuntu, that means that's the step 0, and the step 0 will be executed. Each build step is numbered sequentially from 0 and output with the command. You see that here, you can see that that steps number, we also call it as a layer another way. And then maintainer, so each command results in a new image being created and the image ID output. To save the space, you see sometime you will find this removing intermediate container, this kind of information you will find. What does it mean? To save the space, each intermediate containers will be removed before continuing to the next step inside that you have mentioned inside the Docker file. Then step 2 is to cloning the Git, and step 3, step 4, same thing, and finally uh, debugging of the build is output here. And the last step is run. The step 5 is run chmod. This is again giving the access, giving the permissions to other user to execute it. And then expose it to the world 8000 using the 8000 port and cmd npm start. This is the command. The step 7 is to is the command which runs when you spin a container. So finally you will receive this message successfully built and then an ID. This is called a image ID for this build. So now if you want to tag, you can use docker tag command and then mention the ID and give the image tag name. Okay, we will do this exactly. Okay, clear? Let's do this now. Let's do this. Yeah, I'll keep it here first and then I'll move other side. So commands are clear. So let me clear the screen first. I'll show you ls. You see Docker file is there in this directory, exactly in this directory. I'm gonna say docker build dot, and it's fine. Yeah, enter. So the first one, sending build context to docker daemon. So it's what it is doing. Docker uploads the files and directories under the path supplied to the docker build command. Okay, that is done. So then after that, the step 1/4, total 4 steps we have mentioned in our docker file, out of which the first step has been started. That is step 1/4. What is that? From Ubuntu, what it has done, it has fetched Ubuntu latest, and then once it is done, each command results in a new image being created, and then this is the image ID. In literally, you can call it as a layer. The best way of saying is a layer. Okay, so you got the first layer because it's literally the final Docker image consists of a different number of layers. Okay, so now if it has a 4 steps, that means it will consist of a 4 layers. Okay, so and step 2, it got again an image ID or layer ID, and step 3 here, and removing the intermediate container, in between. Basically, to set up this maintainer cherry RAMs, it has to run a container in between. So it is, once it is done, it has removed that container also. Okay, then the container ID is this. Then we have step 3 is setting up the working dir. That also has been done. Then after that, we have the last step, that is CMD, echo welcome to the world of Docker universe and from Charan. So that also has been, that command is also has been created like a layer, but it did not get executed. That will be executed when you spin. So the step 4 that we have mentioned was, now it's been added like a layer to the total image. So now finally you got the successfully built image with this image ID. What does this mean? So total 4 steps you have mentioned inside the Docker file. So all the steps were converted into a layer, and all the layers were put on or stacked up one by one, and finally we have made a one main image called 155B12EA9B5C. Okay, so calling this image with this ID is pretty, it's very difficult. So that's the reason what I'm gonna do is, before we do anything else, we're gonna tag it. So Docker tag, and copy this image ID and paste it here, and we're gonna say welcome version 1. Okay, welcome message version 1. Okay, let's click enter and see what's gonna happen. That's it. It's executed. Now let me check Docker images, and we have a welcome message version 1 image. You can see that clearly. This is what we have built. If you remember 155B12EA9B5C, see the same image ID, and then here it is welcome message. Okay, with this we have successfully built our first ever Docker image inside our Linux server. So let me mark this also. So now what's next? What's there to do next? Now to spin the container, that's what is left. So now it's time to spin a container. Now it's time to spin a container, run a Docker container. So for that, the command that you have to mention here is Docker and then run and then image name. So, and then image name, the last one. So the Docker run subcommand starts the container. So port P, this P basically P option maps the container port 8000 with the 8090 in this case on the host machine, and then option name gives the container a name. In this case we said container name as a sample 1, and the last argument here is the image name. And once you execute, this is what the output you get it. So in this this part is the output of the container starting process is sent to the terminal. That's what it means. Then the steps are being executed one by one, and you will go on. It goes on like that. Each one will be run, and finally you see, if you want, this is if you run this not in a detached mode, if you run this on interactive mode, you could see all these logs. If you run this on detached mode, you will not find any log on the screen. Okay, So as this command is in interactive, it is not in, it is in interactive mode. So that's the reason you see all these logs. Okay. So even now we are going to run our first container. We are going to spin our first container from our customized Docker file interactively, not in a detached mode. So that's the reason I'm showing this. Okay, let's spin it in an interactive mode, and then we will use docker ps commands or psa commands to see how many containers are presently running in our server. Okay, so docker psa command is used. Run this command to see containers that have been started and removed, okay, along with an id and status like this. And if you say docker psa, that's what, even if you don't, even if the container has been stopped, that container can also be seen using docker, using docker ps option a. If you want to start a stopped container, then you can say docker start, here docker start, and then container name. Okay, so now let's get into the action. Let's run our first ever container. You should be proud. You should be proud now. You should be proud now. You have built your, you have written your own Docker file. You have built your own image. Now you are going to run your own Docker container. Take a bow. So let me do this. So let us get into the Docker server, and let me make it bigger, much bigger. Yeah, this would be better this time. So I will keep it here, and let me clear the screen. I say docker run. Name I'm gonna give. Name port is not required because it's just it will just print a message and it will die. The container will print a message and it will die. So that's the reason you don't need to give a port at all. So name I'm gonna give welcome message or welcome container. Welcome container, and after that image name. What is our image name? Welcome local message and version 1. Correct? So docker run and name is mentioned, and at the end you have mentioned the image. Docker run, this is name option. After the, if you mention the name option, then you can attach a name here next to the name option. Then finally you have to provide the name of the image. Let's execute. It's gonna run interactively. Yes, it started. It's been printed. You see that? Welcome to the world of Docker from AI Charan. Congrats to everyone and everybody who is able to do this step by step. So let me get into this. So this also has been done. So the message has been printed successfully. So let me zoom it and show you. You see that here? You see that? Here? Fine. So now let me check the containers. So if I give docker ps, there is no container running because this container that we have just not that we have just created will come and die. It will come and die. That's it. It's not going to sustain. So that's the reason we have to use another command. It's a docker ps option a. You see that? You can see your command container. It's welcome container. Okay. It was in an exited state. You see that? It's in exited state about a minute ago. An image that it has used is welcome message version 1. Okay. So with this, we have completed our example 4 successfully. We have created our own Docker file. We have built our own Docker image, and we have run our own Docker container. So now one more thing, a bonus thing that I want to give you, I want to show you is, I want to pull this, the fourth one. I want to push this image that we have created into Docker Hub. Okay, so before you push an image into Docker Hub, you have to create your own Docker Hub account. That is very important. Without that, it's not difficult. Creating a Docker Hub account is similar to creating a Facebook account. It's not that difficult, and it's much easier than that. If you have a GitHub account, you can create your Docker Hub account using GitHub account within a one click, a single click. Okay, so now let me make it bigger and clear the screen. Docker, let me check, let us list out images. Docker images, you see you have two images, welcome message and Ubuntu. We're not bothered about Ubuntu, we will only bother about welcome message. So I have to push this image to Docker Hub. Docker push and image name welcome message version tag 1. So let me click here. So the push refers to a repository docker dot. So denied requested access to the resource is denied. Why? There is a problem with this. So now what we are going to do is we're going to change the tag of this docker tag and welcome. And now I'm going to say cube Charan and welcome message version 1. Now let's push it. I will explain it very clearly when you come to that exercise, but for now just tag itself does not exist. Okay, so let me check the Docker images. Okay, it's existed. So now what I'll do, docker push and it's a cube Charan and version 1. The push refers to the repository and preparing. Okay, before that we will docker login username. That's what the issue. So you have to log into your system first, then only it's possible. Username is cube Charan and password so login succeeded. It's time to push. Preparing mounted from library Ubuntu, then digested. So let's get into the Docker Hub of mine. Okay, click on cube Charan. Here it is. Cube Charan welcome message and tag is v1. When did it push? It was pushed just a second ago, a few seconds ago. You see that? And now if I want to use this in some other place, I can just copy this and I can pull it into that and I can do that. Okay, so now we have successfully pushed the image into the Docker Hub also. So with this we have successfully completed our example 4. Okay, first Docker file has been written, built and run and pushed into the Docker Hub, all done in one example.